Blue chip players, we said there was kind of a lack of them on the roster. Phil, you did a mailbag recently over on NBC Sports Boston. You laid out the 10 best players on the roster for the Patriots. You mind kind of taking us through that list for you?
Sure. You want me to just give you the list and then you guys can react to it? Yeah. All right. So we'll start at 10 and we'll work our way back.
So these are offense, defense, special teams. Just your 10 best players on the team.
10 best. Now I got to pick it up here. All right. Number 10, Hunter Henry. Number 9, Jawan Bentley. Number 8, Ramondre Stevenson. Number 7, David Andrews. Number 6, Jabril Peppers. Number 5, Kyle Duggar. Number 4, Christian Gonzalez. Number 3, Mike Owenu. Number 2, Matthew Judon. Number 1, Christian Barmore. Zoe is furiously writing these down. Did you get them all, Zoe?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got your first 7. Give me 8, 9, 10.
Stevenson, Bentley, Henry are 8, 9, 10.
All right, so how many of those guys do you consider either blue chip or have the potential to become blue chip players for you, Phil?
I have 2.
Barmore and Gonzalez.
Barmore and Gonzalez.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now, you'll notice no rookies on that list.
Yeah.
I do expect, I'm a Drake May fan of his game, was before the draft. He'll be on this list eventually, and he would fall into that potential blue chip category, right? So if he hits, then you've got 3. And they're all relatively young, and that's not a bad place to be. You got one guy who impacts the passing game as a rusher, one guy who impacts it as a coverage person, and a quarterback. Not bad. Big question mark on if Drake May actually hits.
Yeah.
And you might be a year or 2 away from saying that all 3 of those guys have hit. We've only seen 4 games of Christian Gonzalez.
Have you done any, based on this, and you look at Ramondre and the contract extension, and, so he's going to be your bell cow, and I know he's been watching Nick Chubb tape as to how they're going to run that zone blocking scheme, which I think is interesting to begin with. Have you done any numbers on Jacoby as far as, like, play action, throwing on the run, boots? Because I think I expect that to be a big part of the offense. And I just don't – he's more of a statue guy, like in the pocket because of the feet. He's a big-legged kid, big, long wind-up. I don't recall him throwing on a run that much. Because I think if you get the running game going and you get those stretch runs going, that's going to play into, like, we got to get May in there to get him moving because I think he can throw well on a run. That's going to play into May playing earlier than expected.
Think you could see that in training camp, couldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest difference in training camp, right? When we get into team periods and they're running some of that stretch stuff, boot back, that's got to favor May. Will it look good enough to where it's so much better than what it looks like with Brissett that you got to play May?
I think there's a chance, though, and it's funny.
That's how I see
when
it.
you mentioned Brissett and on the move, isn't it hard to get out of your head? I don't know if you would remember this, but it was the first throw of the game when the Patriots were in Cleveland a few years ago.
And
he basically
dupe pick.
threw a punt to Kyle Duggar.
Yeah, they duped him into picking that.
Yeah. No, it was a great play by the defense, and it was a tough look,
setup,
but it was the first play of the game, and we obviously knew Jacoby Brissett going into that one, and that was one of those fake the stretch run, bootleg out,
deep
throw
boot
it
back.
down the field.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Now, he's better than that, obviously. That's not going to be the result of every time he tries to do that. But I think there is a chance, though, when you're up there and you guys are watching him every single day, there's a chance that Drake May ends up impressing you to the point where you start to say, okay, why are we just assuming that the veteran's going to start week 1 again here? And that's my guess, too, right? As we sit here today, my guess is he's the starter week 1. And I think it almost has as much to do with Drake May's readiness in a vacuum as it does the offensive line's readiness to protect whoever is back there. But at some point, I wrote about this in the mailbag yesterday too, at some point, if it's obvious to 98.5 The Sports Hub, sitting up on the hill, wherever you guys are this year watching training camp, to reporters that'll be there in attendance like myself, to the other players and coaches on the team that are watching practice day after day after day, if it's clear that one guy, the younger guy, is better than the veteran, it's going to be really hard for them just to sit Drake May just because you're looking at the offensive line and saying, well, they're not ready. Well, the rest of the team's looking at it and saying, well, we're trying to actually compete here, and I want to look good, and I want to contend to actually win games. You're telling me that one guy is going to be our starter, even though I can see at practice every day that the younger guy is the guy who can do things that the older guy can't. That's when you might run into enough stress on the decision makers in New England where you see the young quarterback get in there earlier than a lot of us are anticipating.
So you've talked about that since the second they drafted May, that other players, you're not going to be able to lie to them in terms of keeping May off the field.
You can't, like, and I keep saying, like, Mac was the 15th player drafted, 5th quarterback taken. Why didn't you have this approach with him? Like, well, he's still wrong. We played 1 year. You got to be careful, We don't want to get him in there too early. You threw him right in there. But you had confidence in McDaniels getting him ready. This might be more on coaching than it is on the actual player. Because maybe you don't trust your offense yet. I don't know why you would. The guy's no experience yet calling plays. Did a little bit in Cleveland, but the point is, you're not going to be a great team to begin with, so why not learn on the fly? That's my whole thing with it. And I said that, like, you could never lie to a locker room. If you're in there playing and you're competing every day, you see this kid's beating him in practice, and then he doesn't play in a game, you're like, well, why am I sacrificing my head out there, my body? What are we doing? It's because it's not making our team better. The best guy should play. And if he's the best guy, you play him. I'm so not for just the thought of resting to rest. And don't come at me with the damn Green Bay situation or the situation with the Chiefs, because it's not applicable. It's not the same. You had 12-4 and a 14-2 quarterback ahead of them. One was the NFL MVP, freaking MVP in Rodgers. Okay? Number 1 seed. They got popped. Alex Smith was 12-4. Managed the game well, was throwing for 4,500 yards. They're not applicable. The only one you could come at me with is Carson Palmer and John Kitna. That's the only one on record. And I think you may have brought it up months ago. Other than that, you can't compare it. So don't come at me or anybody, as I sit here, and I still laugh at it. Even the national writers are talking about, well, Patrick Mahomes sat, and so did Jordan Love. Look who they sat behind. This kid's coming in to sit behind a guy you paid 1 year, $8 million to come in and be a pro. Not be a placeholder, be a pro. Teach him the way. Why can't he learn in these 3 months being around Jacoby? Jacoby understands it. He's even talked about, you can see him growing. Like, he knows what his role is here. So I don't think this is a competition. The competition is Drake May versus time. It's when he's ready is when he's going to play. It's not him versus Brissett or him versus Bailey Zappi. It's when he's ready. It's him versus the clock. The clock's running.
And the players will be able to see that, to your point. And I remember them talking about it with Mac Jones. When it happened with Mac Jones, they knew it was the Giants' joint practices, and there was a practice soon thereafter, I believe it was after, where Cam Newton was still away from the team because of COVID protocols, and he ran the 2-minute against the Patriots' number 1 defense. I remember Devin McCourty saying, looks like this kid can play.
That's the guy. Yeah.
And so they knew soon there, he was first-round pick. He was ready to go. He was carving up our first-team defense that had some pretty good players on it in the 2-minute. And so, hell no, this guy's not going to sit for long.
Yep. Hey, if you like that clip, check out more videos from Zolak and Bertrand right here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.